So, how did we become criminals as a nation? Well, firstly, by disregarding the rules, the laws, and the commandments of the Father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And secondary, also through the 13th Amendment. While it appears to be freeing the slaves, it actually freed the foreigners and made the indigenous people of this land into criminals through laws such as the vagrancy laws and things of that nature. They placed us into a criminal mindset, a criminal culture that has been perpetuated until this day. When you look at our cultural media, all we see is just crime, murder, killing, sex crimes, things of that nature. But we're going to examine the 13th Amendment today, and I'm going to do a little reacting. Everybody tuned in? Let's go.
So prisons in America specifically are some of the biggest, most dysfunctional businesses we have in our society. And they're business because of the cheap and free labor. When you read the 13th Amendment, that basically was the amendment that broke through slavery and freed the men and women who were enslaved at the time.
So once again, it wasn't us that was being freed. Excuse me. It wasn't us as a people that was being freed. It was the foreigners, the invaders of this land, the subjects of the kings of Babylon. They arrived in this land as slaves. They at least teach us that much, as criminals and slaves, and they flipped the script on us. They made us become the criminals and the bonded, and they placed it themselves into our position. So with this 13th Amendment, they literally crucified us. And when the 14th Amendment arose, they resurrected themselves into our positions. And fast forward to today, we don't even know who we are anymore. But that's what Focus Daily TV here to do, bring the truth about who we are as a people. Hit that like button, subscribe, support the channel, hashtag Focus Daily TV. Let us move on.
At the time, there's a clause in there that allows for the re-enslavement of people in the event that they're convicted of a crime. And so in prisons throughout our country, you have people who are working for basically free. And if they're not working for free, they're working for wages that if we saw that happen in another country, we would be very critical of. When I was in prison, I worked for 17 cents an hour. That was my starting rate working in the kitchen. But there's also big corporations who invest in prison labor because they can get.
So I don't know what this man did to be imprisoned, but that is the overall objective of this nation that we live in, this company that we reside within, the United States Corporation, is to incriminate and imprison as many black men as possible, because it is the men that lead the way. And if they can keep the men in a criminal mind state and keep them in prison, we could never rise again as a nation.
Get this labor for $1.50 an hour. And then the sad part about it is that in turn, they don't even hire these men and women when they're actually released from prison. Everything in prison has inflated costs. You know, it costs us inside prison, when I was inside, anywhere between $3 and $15 for a 15-minute phone call. We don't have to pay that out here in free society. There's a way that we can send emails to men and women.
So they made a whole economy out of the criminalization of the African American man, or the Afro American man, is what I like to say. Criminalization itself is a culture that has run rampant through our nation. But God is coming to set us free. But first, we must understand what we are being freed from.
Women inside prison, and it costs 5 cents every time we send that. Whereas out here in society, we can send emails without any charge. And so there's so many.
Now, if you want the intricate details of the 13th Amendment, I'd advise you to hit that Google. All of this information that I'm presenting is available through Google. You have to do your own research. You have to study to show yourself approved.
So many ways that the prison is exploited, the cheap labor, the cost of services and goods, and it's a model that, sadly.
So, sadly, whether we're behind bars or on the streets, we're still considered criminals, especially after the 94 crime bill. So when it comes to employment and wages, they pay us criminal wages, and they employ us in criminal working scams.
And unfortunately has affected a large segment of our society. But I think most people aren't aware of why the business models of prison exist, because most of our society has been left clueless in regards to how our judicial system works. And it's largely been to the effective campaigns that politicians have ran for years. This whole idea that one of the greatest fears you should have is crime in America. And when you're operating out of a space of fear.
Okay, and on the nightly news, who do they portray as crime in America? The media participates. The government at the highest levels participate. And unfortunately, we participate too in our own demise, because it is a lack of knowledge which we suffer from. And Focus Daily TV, we're here to bring that knowledge and wake people up. Hit that like button, subscribe, support the channel, tell your friends about it. Hashtag Focus Daily TV. Hit that up too.
Here, you're not thinking clearly. So you're not willing to examine things that are right in front of us. And so the way that the prison system has developed and evolved over the year is it originally started as government-ran, state-ran institutions, and then people start seeing investment opportunities when the state.
So once again, the government amended the Constitution with the 13th Amendment with the sole goal of removing us from our seat of power and placing us in a criminal mind state, whether that be mental, physical, or spiritual, to turn us even more against God than we already had turned ourselves by by not following his commandments and his laws.
States couldn't keep up with the budgetary costs of incarcerating so many people. We currently have over 2 million men and women incarcerated throughout the country. And we represent 5% of the world population, yet we incarcerate 25%.
That's nonsense, but move on.
Of the world's incarcerated people. And so at some point, states could no longer keep up with those budgets. Private investors moved in and seized an opportunity, and then they started structuring laws in a way that.
Which was ultimately the goal of those private investors, those bankers and money changers. It all ties in to one evil ass system.
Ensured that people continue to be incarcerated for the most frivolous things. Like, 40 years ago, we didn't have as many laws on the books that we have now. And, when you look at how the war on drugs itself impacted, incarceration rates, if you follow that pathway, you'll see how people seized on that opportunity to begin to invest in private businesses.
All right, that's it. Another episode of Focus Daily TV on the books. Y'all support this channel, man. Hit that like button, subscribe, hashtag Focus Daily TV, and we out.